You're listening to the Fully Loaded Podcast with your hosts, JC Cornell and Samir Ali.
Welcome back to Fully Loaded. Your host, JC Cornell, alongside co-host Samir Ali. Samir, the Bucs are 3-4. They are in third place in the NFC South. What are your thoughts?
They're not out of it. That's the silver lining here. As an AFC opponent against the Bills, there's a lot of stuff to be critical of. Don't get me wrong. But at least dropping this game isn't the worst. We just saw the weekend come by here or finish up where the Falcons lost. The Panthers did win, but again, they kind of don't really matter. So, I still think this is anybody's division. I still will lean towards the Bucs, even though that might sound biased, but I still think we have the most pieces there to put it all together. I'm not a big fan of whatever they're trying to figure out in New Orleans, regardless of what they did this past weekend. I think that's, kind of perfect timing type of scenario, but the Bucs are not, the season's not over. That's, I think, what you wanted me to say. The season's not over. Not yet.
I didn't want you to say that.
We'll get to it at least. You wanted to see if I thought we should be I don't think we should panic yet, but there's a lot of stuff that they need to fix for sure.
I do definitely want to address something that's kind of hot on Bucs Twitter, Bucs social media right now. It is not time for Kyle Trask to take over this offense. I mean, that's complete nonsense. Baker beat him fair and square in a quarterback competition. You're, 7 games into the season. You don't just bench Baker. All the blame isn't on Baker. Yeah, maybe he's missed a couple throws, but like we've talked about before, the pressure he's facing in the pocket, he's constantly avoiding sacks, moving around, looking to make plays. It's not Kyle Trask time. And I don't think it should be Kyle Trask time at any point of this season.
Yeah, the only time that it really would make sense to have the Kyle Trask time is if we basically know that the season is gone, there's no way we're going to win this division, and it behooves us to either lose games or find out what we have in Kyle Trask. But at that point, you're basically at the last, at the end of the rope at that point. You're like, all right, we got to find out if we're going to keep him, and we got to maybe lose some games. And so it kind of works out. But we're not to that point. It's not even close. And like you said, he beat him out. He is the second string quarterback for a reason. So asking for him to come play makes no sense. And if you look at this offense and what we've done and how we don't move the ball and how we don't target our guys and we don't get the ball to Rashad in space enough and we don't run block, if you look at that and you tell me that Kyle Trask is going to come in and make all those things better, then you're just lying to yourself or you're a Gator fan. And there's no way that and the sacks you talked about, those are sacks with Kyle Trask. So you're punting even sooner. So, spare me the whole, let's see what we got in this kid. He's never gotten a fair chance. Listen, guys don't just get handed jobs. This is not how it works. How long do we need to wait for him to develop? Everyone's like, let him go in there, watch, let him get his feet wet. After this year, he'll be the guy. Like, it'll be his 5th year. At some point, you got to say this is not the guy, all right? Patrick Mahomes was a rookie. He didn't start as a rookie, but he was a rookie, and everyone said this kid is going to be special, okay? Purdy, he was a rookie on the practice squad last year, and in the preseason games, his coach talking how amazed he was with this kid's skill, talent, IQ, all of it. You hear about all of these Aaron Rodgers. Everyone knew Aaron Rodgers was going to be the guy halfway through his rookie season in practice. They used to look across there and say, all right, Brett Favre's time here is numbered. Players used to say that. We haven't heard anything like that about Kyle Trask. So to just hand him the job because you think he could develop, how long do we wait, JC? 6 years, 7 years? Why don't we just let it go to 2030? Just let him have as much time as he needs. He's not the guy for a reason. The guys see that behind closed doors. We don't know any better. Gator fan or not, just chill with it's not Kyle Trask's time. I don't think it ever will be.
And to get back to the game, I think, a positive that I really, really enjoyed watching was Rashad White getting the ball in space. He's got that burst that we haven't seen yet quite this season. He can move and he's a load. And, I was just happy to see him have a really solid game. Yes, the interior blocking still wasn't great, and he had a couple 2 to 3 yard runs, but he was making some decent plays and getting upfield. And of course, his biggest run of the year gets called back by a penalty. Like that's just seems to always happen with these Rashad White big plays. So for him, he must be frustrated, but he's also probably got to be feeling a little bit better. And I think they have to continue giving him the ball, obviously, over Sneak Vaughn and Chase Edmonds. He's just so much more effective than those guys.
Yeah, the thing that bothers me a lot about this offense, and I don't see Rashad tapping his helmet to come out, it's the way they divvy up these touches to the running backs. It just doesn't make sense to me. To bring in Chase Edmonds when you're backed up against your goal line makes no sense. Why would you bring in the smaller scat back when you're trying to hammer out some yards?
He kept slipping.
And he couldn't keep his feet. Yeah. He missed a massive hole. If he makes one guy miss down the field, it might be a 98-yard touchdown opportunity. Instead, he goes to the right, jukes, and falls on his ass. So the way they divvy up the handoffs and the touches to the running backs, Sneak Vaughn coming in there for no reason at all in the middle of the game so often, it's just weird to me because when you watch Rashad, and he'll probably tell you this, the more times he touches the ball, the better he gets. Not only is he a load to tackle, it's just his frame, but the way he runs, he usually initiates contact. He's usually trying to run you over, whether that's 2 or 3 yards, whatever. That's more than just him, but he gets better as he touches the ball. And then when you saw him get the ball in space, JC, he's dynamic. I'm not going to say he's Tyreek Hill, but more times than not, the first guy's not taking him down, and he's turning nothing plays into 5-yard plays. He's turning 5-yard plays into 11-yard plays and first downs. And to just completely go away from that is what bothers me so much about the play calling, the sequencing of plays. Get the ball to your guys and let them do what they do best. And when you find something that works, why do you go away from it? And so I think going forward, they need to lean more on Rashad in the passing game and the running game and give him 7 handoffs, 9 handoffs. That's not enough. That's just not enough. And I don't this is not him splitting time with, the cat that got drafted by the Lions. His name escapes me. Sorry. Jahmyr Gibbs, where you're like, okay, yeah. I understand it. You want to get this guy the ball too. We're talking about Sneak Vaughn and Chase Edmonds, right? And Stephen Chase said last week, when has Chase Edmonds ever been the answer to any question, right? Yeah. And he kind of helped him with that performance, though. I want to see more of Rashad touching the ball, please.
So, Samer, we talked about this on the pre-show. This was a game that came down to a Hail Mary. But the reality is the Bucs got so lucky with all the face mask on Baker Mayfield that kept extending their series. I mean, their series ended twice and then got saved. There's another holding penalty or illegal hands, something. And it just kept this was not a 24-18 game. This was a 24-10 game.
A 24-3 game. Yeah. Honestly, we don't even score that touchdown because we were not getting the ball over 50-yard line. If we were punting it. So we weren't going to score even that, 3 points. I think what it should have been at the end of the day. And the Bills did take, the foot off the gas. And did even that last drive, the guys were saying it, the commentators, it's the weirdest drive they've ever seen. We were milking the clock for the team we were facing. We weren't in any sort of we weren't showing any sense of urgency. We weren't trying to get the ball down the field. We were just dinking and dunking our way 16 plays for 60 yards. It made no sense. And like you said, they bailed us out time and time again with penalties on 4th down. That whole drive was a joke. The result of the scoreboard joke. This was not a close game, and it wasn't because of the defense, if I'm being honest. And then they had their parts. They have their part of the blame here, but offensively, this team just needs to get some stuff figured out. And I think it starts from the coaching down. Baker's not free of blame. I don't want people to say I'm some sort of Baker bro and not going to pretend he was perfect, but I think it starts beyond him and kind of trickles its way down.
So I don't want to get too off topic away from this game, but I do want to bring up the Falcons-Titans game this past Sunday. Rookie Will Levis comes in against this Falcons elite defense, throws 4 touchdowns.
Down the field, too.
Down the field touchdowns, which we could not do against the Falcons. But let's move on. I just wanted to.
If he turns out to be a dude, I'm going to be so mad. At the 33rd spot, when he got drafted, listen, I'm not going to – it's not to say that Kalijah Kancey's not going to be great, and he's shown that he's going to be a good pick. But if Will Levis ends up being that dude, man,
you're talking about opportunities to draft franchise quarterbacks. I mean, this guy has an absolute cannon. So here's the thing. I was told during the draft time that the Bucs were high on Levis. I got an anonymous text message that was not the case. It might have been someone more on the lines of Bruce Arians was very high on this guy, which I'm pretty sure I confirmed, which makes sense because Levis is a total Bruce Arians quarterback. Rocket arm. He's tall in the pocket. But this is one of the points I was going to bring about the Bucs. What worries me, and when you see a team like the Titans just take care of the Falcons, and the Bucs had a horrible game against the Falcons, then you see this game against the Bills. At what point I know we want to be optimistic, and we still have a chance to win the division and make the playoffs. But then there becomes the point where, what if we're picking 18 or 20, and we price ourselves out of getting an elite franchise quarterback? Obviously, none of these guys are thinking that way. Todd Bowles' job is on the line, so he's not about to want to lose games. But the trade deadline's tomorrow. I don't think the Bucs are going to be sellers, and they're going to try to obviously make the playoffs this year. But, it just seems – I hate that. I just hate –
I think so. I used to think that way too, JC. But I think when I've kind of looked back at the last 5-6 years and teams that have gotten their guy – where they haven't had to tank to get their guy, where they haven't had to suck to get their guy. Kenny Pickett ends up kind of falling in the lap of the Steelers. Obviously, the Chiefs make the playoffs and still end up with Patrick Mahomes. So there's ways to
package picks
package picks, go up there, get your guy. But I think more important than that is you just got to continue to keep a winning culture. So if you look at the Panthers now, they look like they lost on purpose. They got to a certain point, they got their guy, but you can kind of see that there's still residue left of that culture where they're not a winning. And I think that's something that's plagued this team for so long, this franchise, that I kind of put more weight to the winning culture over anything else. And if you see your guy in the second round, like the Tennessee Titans got their guy. Right? Did they have to lose last season and tank? And they were kind of in the middle. They made it all work and they figured it out. And I think if you see the guy that you want and he's not a top 3 or 4 pick and you're not a top 3 team, you'll figure out ways to go get him. You figure out ways to go get him. And you figure out ways to trade for him. There's all types of scenarios that can play out. I think winning and building that culture is just more important right now, especially when you owe it to some of these guys. You have a Levante David on this team. You have Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. The list goes on and on. Guys that deserve to be competitive and deserve for you to be competitive mindset wise around them. So I'm with you. I think back in maybe 10 years ago, being that 18th spot was basically you're not going to find your guy for years.
Unless you're getting Josh Freeman at.
Yeah, and you're just going to kind of stay in that quarterback purgatory of never finding your guy because you're not losing enough games, but you're not winning enough to make it matter either. But I think nowadays it's a little bit different. I think this year's class coming up is still going to be it's going to be deep enough to, regardless of what Baker does, you got to draft a quarterback first or second round next year, however the season plays out, in my opinion.
So going back to the game, obviously Ryan Neal, another weak point, another bad game for him. We'll see what they do moving forward, if that's a D Delaney coming in or not. But, also I'm pretty disappointed in the pass rush. Shaq's coming off an Achilles, but I think there's a clear hole there. I think Yaya has a lot of potential, but there's a hole on this for the defensive ends and outside linebackers that we need an elite guy. I mean, you need an elite guy to really dominate offenses in this league.
Yeah, I think it showed a lot too when Vita Vea wasn't playing, right? That he's elevating the guys around him, especially inside. And again, Kalijah Kancey's a rookie. Can't expect much from him. Yaya Diaby, I think, has a lot of tools, but he's still raw, so he's going to have his moments to learn, and he's going to make mistakes too. I think getting him on the field would help. But it feels like we don't blitz as often as going back to 2020 maybe. It's like we don't manufacture pressure against offenses and kind of force their hand. And I don't know why. I don't know if that's Todd not trusting his guys back there. I don't know if that's him trying to game plan for what they're going to come at him with and not leave, zone gaps behind. But I feel like if you're going to be aggressive and that's going to be your thing, you just got to why haven't we seen Devin White blitz up the middle more often? I see what's his name coming in off the corners, Antoine, right? And he causes every time he does it, he does something good for the defense. He causes something good for the team. So I just want
pass, interception.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, that's the only time we scored a touchdown against the Bills, honestly. It probably should have been 3-1 game. So, I don't see enough of that. And I don't know why that is. But when we do our 3 down linemen or we do 4 guys down, we're not getting to the quarterback like teams are against us. And we're definitely not stopping the run as well as we should, especially without Vita.
So Sammer, I just rewatched the game. Devin White's getting a lot of hate right now about his play and whatnot. Something's not right with him. He's got to be injured or something. I'm watching. He's struggling. Like he does not look like Devin White. He doesn't look like a guy that runs a 4.4. He looks like a guy that's running a 4.7. He's not moving the same. He's not getting these violent hits that he usually has. He's just not himself out there.
Watch him when he reacts to plays, specifically that play where Josh Allen scores a touchdown up the middle there, which is not even designed to run. He just saw the gap open up. But he doesn't – when he plants his back foot to start running towards Josh, there's no push there. There's no – and then he kind of just jogs his way down instead of going beeline right at him and try to knock him out. He kind of just jogs towards the goal line. And it's like you watch that and you're like, that's not Devin White. And you could say, oh, that's effort. But there's nothing that would suggest that it's an effort problem because he's in a contract year. So – for him to not put effort on tape makes no sense. He should be, and he understands that. He's trying to get paid. So you have to go back to thinking something's not right. And so I think he's kind of looked this way since, I want to say the Eagles game, honestly, when he had that groin or something that was bothering him. And then he mentioned the foot.
Told us the foot.
Yeah, he told us the foot, which I didn't really know about before that. And so you look at it and you're like, okay, it makes some sense because he doesn't push off well. There's no speed there, and he's not getting off his blocks, which, again, if your foot's bothering you, you're not going to be able to really get enough push and get off of a block like that. And so a lot is kind of being put on him, and I think a lot of people want to do that because they want to justify not bringing him back. But before he was injured, in my opinion, he was playing really well, and no one was saying anything. So now it's kind of like piling on and this and that, and I don't think he's a problem with the defense right now. Anyway, Ryan Neal is –
huge issue back there. Huge liability.
Massive problem in communication, massive problem in angles again, massive problem in just I don't know what he's doing back there. Learning struggles, curve, defense, I don't care. At some point you got to make a change. And like I think every time we've seen him, JC, this season, has it not been him helping the other team score or come up with a big play?
100%. And of course, the Bucs love to always in our history, love to have rookies have their biggest games of their careers. Dalton Kincaid, the rookie tight end, first-round pick, absolutely shredded us. I mean, that was for a guy that hasn't had a big game all year. Guy's been pretty silent. He basically plays the slot role for the Bills, and then suddenly Dawson Knox is out for the game, and he has looks unbelievable. It's just
because he was so open.
Yeah, I know.
It was like, I mean, probably you and I would have had a similar day, honestly. I mean, he's probably taller than the two of us, but he definitely is. But we would have probably been able to catch those passes. I don't know if we would have scored, but they were just open. And then the one that he does score on, again, Ryan Neal, taking the why is he running the opposite direction? He's literally the safety on that play, and he's just going the opposite direction. By the time he responds, the guy's already crossed his body. Like, there's no way you're going to catch it. It doesn't matter if it's a tight end or a wide receiver, running back. It doesn't matter. You're not going to catch him. And so, again, another massive play. Other times it was Devin White not be able to keep up with him. Again, he doesn't look fast. Something's going on there. So, just I still think though that this defense is very, very, very good. They have their problems on third down, but our offense is not helping them. And I think part of that problem is our scheming and our sequencing of plays, and we're just not. Dave Canales is not learning fast enough, if that makes sense, because he's a rookie.
I mean, Mike Evans didn't really get the ball until what was that in the second half or in the late second quarter when he got his first catch. But Dave Canales has got to be getting Mike Evans more opportunities to catch the ball. I mean, Mike Evans is one of the best wide receivers in this league. You see all these other teams in this league scheme their best guys open. Get Mike Evans the ball. I mean, obviously Godwin, had a good game, had a touchdown, but get your best player the football. Man,
listen, Gabe Davis was being manufactured touches by his offensive coordinator and his quarterback, right? And opposite of him is Stephon Diggs. And you would say, oh, that's because Stephon Diggs is getting covered. No, he also had 8 targets. So that's not what's happening. All right. You look at the Chiefs, like I've said so many times, the Chiefs don't have a wide receiver that I can even name. Okay. And don't say whatever that one guy is that they just acquired via trade. That guy doesn't count.
Tony?
He's not
or Hardman,
whatever. Yeah. Everyone knows they're going to throw the ball to 87, and everyone knows that they have to throw the ball to 87. And that you have to throw the ball to 87. And guess what? 87 gets the ball 9 times a half, not 9 times a half. And at some point they have 51 straight completions between the two of them. That's crazy. So
he's always just wide open.
Yeah. So if I want to compare Mike Evans to another wide receiver like Cooper Kupp or Stephon Diggs or Justin Jefferson, all these guys that are manufactured and schemed open, it's a little bit harder because they're different speeds and built and their route running is different. But if I compare him to Kelsey, very similar build. Obviously, he's chunkier than Mike, but they run routes in a similar fashion. They're not the fastest guys. They're not slow. They're talented. And you look at that and you're like, there's no way you can't manufacture touches for Mike Evans. There's just no way. There's no excuse that his only target in the second half is that touchdown that goes down the field that ends up going off the guy's helmet and he catches it. Garbage time touchdown doesn't count. Up until that point, he had 3 targets with 1 catch and none in the second half. That's insane. How, like, if your offense doesn't work, you give it to your best guy. You coach basketball, you play basketball, JC. If the offense doesn't work, you put it in your best player's hands. You give Michael Jordan the ball and you just stay out of the way. Like, that's what you do. Keyshawn Johnson wasn't the best wide receiver on our team. Come on. It's not that difficult. Rub routes, wide receiver screens, illegal pick plays that are now somehow legal. Put him in bunch formations where he's the guy that's untouched behind the other 2 wide receivers. There's tons of ways to get balls to these guys. And if you need 5 yards or 3 yards, why aren't you calling a fucking slant pattern? Sorry. Why aren't you calling a slant pattern to Mike Evans?
No, you're good.
Like, he played basketball, so he knows how to body a guy out and box out. It's easy play. You get 5 yards every single time. He just falls forward. Keyshawn Johnson literally made a living just doing that and going across the middle. This guy wasn't beating anybody down the field. And yet we don't manufacture these touches. And people are like, oh, he's being bracketed. You don't think Cooper Kupp gets bracketed? You don't think all these guys that we're talking about get bracketed and double covered? Like, they get put in motion. They get put in scenarios where they create communication errors on the defense. They put them in situations where guys who aren't supposed to be covering them are covering them. They put them in situations where they're moving them around. Like, Mike Evans doesn't even go in motion anymore. Well, what? Okay, just line him up outside. Yeah, just run these 3 routes, man, and yeah, no problem. You can tell by his body language that he's frustrated. He doesn't like what's going on. He doesn't appreciate not getting the ball, and he wants to get paid, so he wants the ball even more on top of that. He's not the guy that's gonna say it, right? But at some point, that's why I keep saying coaching. You got to figure some of this out and make it easier for your guys. You got to give answers to your quarterback. You got to get answers for your wide receivers. You got to get answers for your offensive line. It's not happening right now, and I think that's a bigger problem than what everyone wants to say. It's Baker. Baker sucks. He's not playing great. But he's also not being helped by his offensive coordinator.
So, Sammer, we talk about this a lot. We talk about this a lot. Yeah, that was right. Tomorrow's the trade deadline. What are you thinking? Anything?
I don't see the Bucs doing anything, honestly. I mean, the only thing that could come to mind, honestly, is maybe, and I know they said they wouldn't be doing this, but maybe moving Devin White, because it looks like he may not come back, right? But they also might know that he's injured and they're not going to put too much weight on his recent performance, and they want to ride it out. And, it behooves them to let him play badly, if that makes sense, because then he's definitely not going to get paid elsewhere, and maybe he wants to stay at home and they can continue developing him or not developing him or whatever you want to say. But I don't see them making a move, honestly. I don't see them trading anybody. People have asked if they would trade Jamel Dean or Carlton Davis because their contracts makes some sense. But I don't see them doing that. I don't see them sabotaging Todd Bowles is kind of the mindset here.
And I agree. I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, you can't, if you're Jason Light, Todd Bowles, if you just sell a bunch of players and, finish last or third place in the NFC South, that's not doing anything for Todd Bowles. Todd Bowles will lose his job. I mean, everyone will want a new head coach, a fresh start, a new quarterback. I will say this, Samer, I'm down in the dumps about this team. Listen, I am one of the most optimistic Bucs fans you'll hear, but right now I'm lethargic thinking about this team. This team is not going to win a Super Bowl. I mean, yes, could it win the NFC South and make the playoffs? Possibly, but they got to really show me something in the next couple of weeks, or I just came from a doctor's appointment, and the doctor's a huge Bucs fan, and my doctor literally just told me, I'm not going to watch a game for the rest of the season. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, there's being in my situation where I'm down in the dumps, and then there's a situation where a guy is a lifelong Bucs fan, and he's like, I'm turning the games off for the rest of the year. I mean, so
I'm with you, man. It took me about. Like, I didn't want to watch college football. Like, I did not like, and it sucked that it was a Thursday, because on Sundays, at least you start doing your stuff on the week, on Monday, and you kind of, it gets lost in the shuffle and you feel better naturally. But then you had Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Saturday and Sunday to just stew on this garbage, and then watch other teams run the ball really, really well with huge highway holes. And I'm just like, God, man, this is really terrible. My business partner always calls me after the games, and he's just like, hey, what happened? And he'll have me kind of vent. He called me. He's like, we're not going to talk about it. And he just let it go. And I was like, yeah, man, I really don't want to talk about it. I don't want to run into Bucs fans at Publix and have, hey, what's going on? Yeah. I don't want to talk about it. I didn't like what I saw. I didn't like it from a coaching perspective. I didn't like some of the stuff Todd Bowles is doing. Like, there's a bunch of stuff. I didn't like it. And I think from here on out, I want to see them show me that they're competent and competitive, man. I still think they can win the division. They're not going to win the Super Bowl, obviously. How much does it matter if they win the division? I just go back to the culture side of things. But yeah, I'm kind of with you, man. Show me something. Show me.
You know, God, we started the season off so hot, and then we had that early bye week. You know, all the guys were pumped to have not pumped to have the bye because you want to bye later in the season for injury purposes and whatnot. But, you know, Baker's doing the Rich Eisen show. He's on all these shows. They're talking about him on Good Morning Football. He's doing all these interviews. He's on College Game Day. He's on Pat McAfee's show. He's firing the rifle like at the Oklahoma game. And then I'm not
downhill.
saying, but like, did he lose that chip that he had? Like, get your weight up. Where'd that chip go? Like, he just hasn't looked as like fiery and electric as he did to start the season. I don't know.
I think he's dealing with a little bit of an injury with the knee thing, but it's a pain management thing from the reports, right? But I don't think he's lost a chip. I just think it's become frustrating what they're doing because they're not giving him answers. They're not like that's the biggest thing I've learned over the last few years is that when they talk about offensive coordinators from guys who know what they're talking about, your best guys are the ones that get your guys answers. They get your quarterback answers pre-snap. They get your quarterback really quick answers after the ball snap. And I think right now the Bucs don't have answers for him. So from week 1 to 4, he would put his foot down on the third step and fire the ball at his first target or his second read almost every single time. They were there, whether they were open or not. He was firing and he was taking the shot. Weeks 6, 7, and 8, something changed. And he's not processing it differently. He's not confident in himself anymore. What changed that now his first read is having him pumped every single time? I can't remember the last time he's thrown on his first read in the last 3 weeks. So something changed, whether it's traffic that's being thrown in front of him on those reads, whether it's the defense now jamming those wide receivers and turning the timing off to where guys are getting open, but not in the order of his progression. So it's throwing it all off. Is it the offensive coordinator not putting in enough motion and making things easier for him? Is it Dave Canales not getting him in a rhythm early like you like to see from younger quarterbacks sometimes? Jameis Winston, Jimbo Fisher love to do that for him to calm him down. We're not installing things the right way, and our scripted plays don't work, and we're not getting answers. And so that's why I keep saying coaching, something is hurting Baker's ability. And then on top of that, I think there's something even more important than that that's happening. It's they're over-coaching the don't turn the ball over mantra with him. And I think what makes
doesn't
Baker
look decisive.
Yeah, what makes Baker so good, whether it's win or lose, is his ability to just say, F it, I'm throwing the ball in there and I'm taking the shot. And Geno Smith last year for the Seahawks had that mindset because he said, I'm probably not going to get another chance to start. Let's just go and rip it. And if it works out, it works out. And it worked out. He can't rip it here. I think he's being overcoached to not throw interceptions, and he's not taking chances. And I think part of it is he knows it might be his last chance to start in the league. He needs this to work out. And so he's a little bit in his head. And when they throw in traffic where there's guys that look like they're open, but they're zoned and bracketed by a linebacker and safety or linebacker in a corner and safety, whatever it is, throws that he's made, he's now not because there's too much traffic and he's thinking about it too long. And I think that's what's happening is that's seeping into him to where he's now not being Baker. And that's why I say he misses BA, like we miss BA's offense, because that fits him in a way that just go let it rip, dude. Whatever happens, happens. And I feel like you should do that if you have a good defense, right?
So, I was kind of thinking about this before I talk about Dave Canales a little bit. With Baker, I always feel like really good quarterbacks, like Tom Brady, for example, they always have a safety net guy. Yeah. Like we don't have a guy on this offense that's just like a great slot, like a Julian Edelman or, Hunter Renfro's on the trading block. He sucks, but like, what I mean? Like these guys that can just get open and then if your read's not there, boom, you got your guy and you got a couple yards there. Lenny Fournette who's signing with the Bills, by the way, was there for Tom Brady last year. I obviously Rashad's kind of played that role a little bit,
I
but
think they have it.
You think Rashad is going to be that safety net? Yeah, he's got to be, right?
I think it's Rashad, and I think what's happening is that Baker over the last few weeks has also started to not take that check down when it's there, even though it's been there. We gave Dave Canales a lot of praise over the first 4 weeks of the season by pointing out that every time something wasn't there, he always had Rashad on the left-hand side or the right-hand side, and on the opposite side, he seemed to always have K. Otten. And even if those for a couple yards, Baker knew that if these three guys are not open, just dump it off and let's just take some positive and go. And over the last few weeks, he's not doing that as often. Last game against the Bills, he did, and it turned out pretty damn well. And then they kind of got away from it again. And I don't think Trey Palmer is at that point yet. I don't like DT in the passing game because I don't like how he holds the ball. And I don't even like how K. Otten holds the ball, to be honest. But I think we're not utilizing some of that stuff, and we're not making the defense change what they're doing when they defend us. That's my biggest thing is if they're going to give you this and they're going to take away that, why do you keep doing that instead? Take right. What they're giving you and force them to change. And when we hit the big shot against the Falcons with Mike Evans, they all of a sudden said, okay, we can't press these guys. Let's go off. And they went back in his zone. They played off coverage, and we had them where we wanted them. We didn't do anything differently. They went back to doing it again, and we didn't move the ball after that. So, again, there's something there where I don't think Canales has all the answers like we see from Sean Payton and guys like that.
So what I was going to say about Canales, he was under Pete Carroll, whether it was Seattle or USC for 13 years, I believe. And he was always a quarterback coach. And you kind of wonder, like, with all the success they've had with Russell Wilson, what the success obviously he had with Geno got him the OC job. Why did it take so long for him to actually start calling plays in this league? With all that success, I mean, he was under a lot of great guys. I'm not counting him out because it's not easy just to be a play caller. That takes a lot of skill, but he's really got to show something and show some changes to be more effective for this offense for Bucs fans to really buy into him.
Yeah, I think this week being that little mini bye sets itself up to be the perfect opportunity for them to kind of reflect a little bit and self-scout and say, we're not a run-first team. We're not a running – like you can say that to me all you want, but until you actually are a running team, you're not. So just if you're not, just accept that. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to be. There's creative ways to get the ball to your guys in space and use that as extension of the run. I've been saying that forever. People don't like the wide receiver screen with Chris Godwin, but, man, listen – BA knew I'm not going to run the ball well. It's fine. I'll just throw wide receiver screens. I'll have Byron call these all day. As much as you hate it, if you don't run it too often, it does work. And so I think the Bucs need to use some of that stuff and understand that. Listen, we can't run the ball between the tackles right now. Even though I do think Stinnie did a hell of a lot better than. Dude,
I think he was the highest graded player on the offense. Yeah.
So. And let's run a little bit more behind Tristan Wirfs, our freaking Hall of Fame left tackle.
Yeah.
Let's take what we have and that's the thing with the Bucs is they don't have one thing that they do really well, and they don't have one guy that they lean on real heavily. And I feel like sometimes Chris Godwin is the guy that Baker looks at. And in the beginning of the season it was Mike Evans, but you need to have a bread and butter. And the thing that Seattle always had was that they could run the ball. They may not have had the best pass blocking offensive line, but they could always run the ball when he was there. When they were at USC and he was there, they could run the ball well. It's college, a little bit different, but we don't have something that we do really well. I think we can find that. I just don't necessarily think it's a running game. And I think that's what's hurting Canales. I don't think he has the answers when he doesn't have a running game in his equation. I think that's where he's struggling to find the answers, but young season, man, I still think he can become that guy. He's got all the tools. Right. I just think he's got to put it together. He's not going to be Sean Payton overnight.
I think, like I said, these next couple of games are so important for this team. They really got to make a huge turnaround. I don't know if you have any last thoughts. I thought we'd keep this one short and sweet and look forward to our preview show on Thursday. Any last final thoughts?
The sky's not falling as badly as you and I feel. And I felt pretty badly after that game. I didn't want to do that Bleacher Report thing, but I think we have really winnable games coming up. People are going to say, oh, we're not going to beat the Texans. We're not going to beat the Colts. We just watched the 49ers lose 3 straight games. I think anybody can beat anybody. The Houston Texans have a rookie quarterback, right? There's a lot of winnable games coming up. We have a pretty soft schedule. outside of that 49ers game, in my opinion. And so it still sets itself up for us to teach guys to continue a winning culture, to get our feet underneath us and figure this out and win the division ultimately. And it's something to hang your hat on. But again, it's culture. So I still think there's a lot at stake. There's still a lot at play here. And I don't think by any means that this is even close to over. And listen, just gotta be patient. We're not winning the Super Bowl this year, so we got to be patient. I think we've gotten a little bit spoiled the last few years, JC. But
Tom Brady did spoil us a little bit after all those terrible years, and then you suddenly have the GOAT, and then now we're trying to find our way without him. But thank you guys for listening. You can follow us on Fully Loaded Bucs on Twitter. We do have a new Instagram account if you want to give that a follow, Fully Loaded Podcast. Please like and subscribe, and please leave comments on Spotify and iTunes. I'm checking out. I'm your host, JC Cornell, with Samer Ali.
Go Bucs.
Go Bucs.